The lineup's loaded, the rotation's deep, but when it comes to the ninth inning, the Dodgers still don't have that dude. Maybe it's time to do something about it.
You are Locked On Dodgers, your daily Los Angeles Dodgers podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, everybody? I'm Harry Ruiz. That's Travis Rodgers, and it's time for Locked On Dodgers, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. In today's show, are the Dodgers about to go all in for a shutdown closer? Could a Cody Bellinger reunion actually make sense? And is Andy Pages the next James Outman, or something more, Travis?
Well, no disrespect to James Outman, but I think he's something more. We're going to get into it on today's episode of Locked On Dodgers, brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase.
Travis, he always holds it down every weekday from 3 to 6 p.m. with the Travis and DeMarco Show on the radio, 710 ESPN LA, or on your phone via the ESPN LA app. Me, I'm behind the mic for USC and the Raiders doing play-by-play in Spanish, but when I'm not calling touchdowns on weekends, I'm right here breaking down Dodger baseball with you. First time tuning in, welcome to the squad. And to our everydayers, you're the real MVPs of Locked On Dodgers. The Dodgers' next big splash, an elite closer. There's been plenty of noise around the Dodgers' offseason priorities, but according to the Athletics' Jim Bowden, there's one name that could shake up the entire bullpen: Edwin Diaz. Diaz opted out of his deal with the Mets, and after his bounce-back 2025 season, a 1.63 ERA, 98 strikeouts in 66 innings, and a strikeout rate in the top 1% of the league, he's back to being the most electric closer in baseball, and when healthy, there's nobody like him, Travis. The whole show, the walkout music, the adrenaline, the intimidation, all of it. Now, the Dodgers have built bullpen differently throughout recent years, but I feel right now, after what we saw towards the end of the year, what we saw during the postseason, it's like, okay, we need a shutdown closer because Roki Sasaki, he's going to go back from the bullpen to being in the starting rotation. So is it time to go and spend big on a closer?
As much as I would love to see the show, right? And I'm talking about the trumpets and I'm talking about the lights flickering on and off and the entrance and all, and how much fun that would be. And it would be fun. I don't think so. I think that where they need to get better is in other places, notably the outfield. I think that's where they need to get better. I think the Dodgers did something last year that they've been very reluctant to do under Andrew Friedman, and that's they spent money on relief pitchers. Spending money on relief pitchers is almost always a bad idea, because you just have no idea what you're going to get. The reason that they're relief pitchers is that their consistency and performance is all over the place. Diaz is elite, right? Diaz is great. This is not a criticism of Diaz specifically. This is a be careful if you spend money on the bullpen. For the first time in maybe in forever in Andrew Friedman's tenure, they spent money on bullpen. They spent money on Tanner Scott. They still got to pay him. He's got one of the worst deals in baseball as it looks right now. Kirby Yates, they spent money in the bullpen. Didn't work out. What the Dodgers have been really good at is fixing it one of two ways. Fixing it internally, find somebody that can develop into a guy, whether that be an Evan Phillips or getting it on the cheap like Blake Trinan, having him come in and develop into a much better leverage reliever, or they fix it at the deadline. They'll go out and find somebody at the deadline that's maybe a mid-level guy. The Dodgers, since Kenley Jansen, really have not had a guy at the back end who you just say, okay, we've got this guy. He pitches the ninth inning. We win games. They put it together through a variety of different ways. It's worked incredibly well. They've won the World Series 2 years in a row without a traditional closer. It didn't prevent them from doing it again this year. And I would be very surprised, considering what Diaz is probably going to command, if they go in there and do, not because they can't afford it, but because it's a bad way to spend your money.
Yeah, they've relied on depth and matchups over the last couple of years. And let's say it as it is. Look at October when leverage was at its highest. How many times did the Dodgers blow the game late in the game in the ninth inning? It wasn't something that was like, oh my God, it's a weakness for this team. It was during the regular season. It was when you played the last game against the Blue Jays, where if you had swept that series against the Blue Jays, you had home field advantage instead of having to go back to Toronto twice. That's when I call bull whenever people's like, oh, 162 game seasons, one game doesn't matter much. Look at that game right there. Or go back to when the Giants won the division and cut the Dodgers streak of winning the National League West for 1,000 years in a row. It was because of one game and one check swing and them taking the lead late in the game. And that one game changed a lot. Right here, it's like, okay, the Dodgers, they could have won that game, and it was the bullpen failing the team. It was Blake Trining failing the team right there. In the postseason, I don't feel that was an issue. Yes, Roki Sasaki came through, but he wasn't the only guy pitching late in the game. So I would just love to have a closer, Travis, that it's like, okay, this is his role. It's not okay, it depends on when this guy is pitching or where he is pitching or how many days rest. It's like, I would just love to have this guy that it's like, okay, he is our closer no matter what, because Tanner Scott, they were going to start trading him back and forth with Kirby Yates, with Blake Trinan, with Alex Vesia, depending on who the opponent was, who was up at the plate, what type of pitching matchups he had in the past. I just want to have one guy. And if it's not Diaz, you could also look at a guy who I feel it's an upgrade, Robert Suarez, who just opted out in San Diego, 40 saves in 2025, 2.91 career ERA, a veteran with mentality that fits this clubhouse perfectly.
I hear you. I feel it. I see it differently. Think of the 3 World Series the Dodgers have won since 2020. None of them included an elite. In fact, they benched Kenley Jansen the year they won it in 2020 because he kind of, lost his way. Since then, he's kind of refound it and been a pretty good pitcher since then. But they win it with Julio Urias on the mound in 2020. They win it with Blake
Walker Buehler
on the mound in 2024. They do it this year with Yamamoto and Snell and Glasnow and all these guys picking up the late innings. Sasaki, a converted starter. I don't think they're going to do it. And I don't know, like when you look around and these guys that are the best closers, I mean, Toronto didn't have a lights-out closer. They're in the World Series. You look at a team like Seattle. They didn't really have a lights-out closer. They get to the ALCS. You look at Milwaukee. They had kind of this rotating door of guys that would pitch. They got rid of Devin Williams. Like, it's not the piece that it used to be back in the days of Dennis Eckersley and Mariano Rivera. The game's just – the matchup moments are different. The leverage moments can come in the 7th, 8th inning, and the guys are using their bullpens very differently. I think that's all part of the calculus of doing this. And then specifically for the Dodgers is once bitten, twice shy. Like they haven't needed that piece. Yes, it kind of simplifies some decision making, but when it gets into the postseason, and you know this, I know this, and every Dodger every dayer knows this, the Dodgers aren't playing to beat the Reds in June. Yes, a game can matter, but they'll kick that game if they feel like they need to kick that game, because we're going to have a different way of playing in October. We're going to use our bullpen differently in October. We just need to get there, and just through the strength of their talent and their overwhelming ability to win games, they're going to get there. I don't think that is an essential piece for this team.
Hey, shout out Andres Munoz. I would trade for him, the Mariners closer. I really like this stuff. Los Mochis, Sinaloa, saludos, paisano. And bottom line right now is, if this front office really believes that this core is championship ready right now, which I believe, and I feel you as well, Travis, adding an elite closer might be just the missing piece that puts them over the top, where it's like, what's the weakness in this squad if you do end up bringing an elite closer? I understand too. You touched the stove when it was scorching hot. You burned yourself, and you probably think, let's not do it anymore, and let's put those resources in other positions.
There's one other thing here, and maybe I'm just being overly optimistic, but I don't think that there's a 0% chance of this happening. I would say there's probably a 50-50 shot of this happening. Tanner Scott could rediscover who he is and what he does. He had a terrible season. I'm not here to say that it was anything other than a huge disappointment. Tanner Scott's a really good. The reason the Dodgers gave him $70 million over 4 years is because he is what we're talking about, an elite level closer who you can go in there and dominate left-handed hitters. He just had a bad year. Like we talked about on yesterday's show, one of the things that the Dodgers are incredibly good at is developing guys, fixing guys. And maybe they didn't have the right guy to kind of tweak him. And you saw what they did with Sasaki from the beginning of the year to the end. that maybe a full offseason, a spring training, and just kind of to redevelop Tanner Scott can be an option too, because the market for him is not robust. You're very unlikely to be able to move off of him in any meaningful way. So you got to run it back. And I think that's the first place you look to be the ninth inning guy is Tanner Scott, and just hope that this was just a terrible year from him, and he goes back and he's the really good pitcher that he's been previously.
So that's a big question right there. The closer position, is it going to be an in-house solution? Will the Dodgers go and do a big splash in free agency, or will they trade for a closer with another team that's on an expiring contract? All right, next on Locked On Dodgers, what about a familiar face coming back to Hollywood? Cody Bellinger might just make too much sense for the boys in blue. The NFL season is back, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in the stadium surrounded by fellow fans cheering on for your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle. Between queues, login screens, and prices jumping at checkout, it's just frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives the advantage back to fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You'll always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included, so the price you see is the price you pay. Honestly, it's faster, cheaper, and less stressful than any other way I've bought tickets in the past. Their zone deals, they are clutch. Pick the section, Game Time picks the seats, and you save big. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off of your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, that's promo code LOCKEDONMLB for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen of the day, and thank you for making Locked On the #1 sports podcast network. Check out our YouTube channel where you can subscribe for free. Smash that notification bell so you never miss a beat. Full episodes, hot takes, breaking Dodgers news, and more. If it drops, you're on it. That's how you become an everydayer here on Locked On Dodgers. Could a Cody Bellinger reunion actually work? Here's one you probably didn't think we'd be talking about again. Cody Bellinger back in Dodger blue? It's a thing that's quietly gaining some traction around baseball circles. Bellinger declined a $25 million option with the Yankees, betting on himself for another big deal after his best year since his MVP season in LA. In 2025, he hit .278, 29 homers, 98 runs batted in, and 13 steals. Production that looked a lot like his 2019 version, and he's still just 30 years old, Travis. A two-time All-Star, Gold Glover with defensive versatility to play all three outfield spots and first base. I mean, does it make too much sense?
Look, Cody Bellinger does something that I think every Dodger fan knows what Dodger brass, Dodger executives, Dodger coaches, Dave Roberts likes. And that's optionality, right? How many times have you heard Andrew Friedman talk about the word optionality? Can you do a lot of different things to help us win a game? Cody Bellinger checks a lot of boxes. He runs well. He's an elite level outfielder. He can play first base if we want to get Freddie off his feet occasionally. Like we've talked about, a lot. Everydayers know what I'm about to say next. He's not going to get to DH. That's Shohei's spot, and you don't take Shohei out of the lineup. So there's that. I think where it just gets a little complicated is just returning to LA and the expectations of it all, right? Like he won a Rookie of the Year here. He won an MVP here. Like this is where he had his greatest successes. And I don't know if he falls back in because he was lost here in LA, right? That he's become a good player elsewhere, but he just couldn't get it figured out. I don't know if he's kind of ironed out some of those difficulties, but if he showed up, let's just be hypothetical here for a second. He would be what? The Dodgers' 8th best guy? That's a pretty good spot to be in for a player that's that good. You're not asking him. I think one of the things he struggled with when late in his Dodger career was the expectations of, dude, you're a former MVP. Why are you batting 190? Why are you changing your batting stance every day? That this is not what an MVP does. We need you. You need to be, if not the best player on this team, one of the best players on this team. And I think he might have struggled with that a little bit. They're not asking for that anymore. Just be a guy on this this team, bat 7th on this team, pick up an RBI here or there on this team. We don't need you to be the 45 home run MVP candidate. And I think that may be a really good fit for him. It depends on if he's looking. I don't think you pay him like, he's probably looking to get paid. The Dodgers, I know they spend a lot of money, Harry, but they don't make bad deals. The reason we still talk about Tanner Scott is like that's just so unlike the Dodgers to spend that amount of money on a guy that's giving them, virtually nothing along the way. They don't make a lot of bad deals. And if somebody wants to pay Cody Bellinger big dough, I don't think it's going to be the Dodgers.
Yeah, if Cody and Scott Boras are looking for a deal that's like one that is 200 million plus, no chance in hell the Dodgers end up making a move for him. And it's going to be tough as well if he comes back to the Dodgers. You go from being pretty much the number 2 or 3 guy in a New York Yankees lineup only behind Aaron Judge, where it's like, okay, who else is better than Cody Bellinger there? Grisham? No. Yeah. Giancarlo Stanton? I'd say no. Chisholm? He brings energy, but no. Goldschmidt, no. Volpe, no. Wells, no. McMahon, no. So he literally goes from being the second best guy on a Yankees lineup to then going to the Dodgers. And it's like, okay, he's at least at the very minimum behind the top 3 MVPs right there in the top of the lineup. And then Will Smith.
Yeah. And Max Muncy and Teoscar Hernandez. Just that is he better than Andy Pages? Yeah. Okay. We might be done with the list at that point. Whoever plays left field, okay. So 7, 8, 9, somewhere down there. And by the way, the Dodgers have made a mockery of this. If Cody Bellinger is your 7th or 8th best player, that's an amazing team. Just an amazing team because he's a former MVP. This is a really good major league player, but I think it's more interesting than it is likely. But look, if the Dodgers made an announcement that Cody Bellinger is coming back to LA, I think Dodger fans would be excited to see it because you're not asking him to do a lot. You're just asking him to be on the team, fill a role, play some left field, some center field, wherever you want to stick him. And I think he'd do a great job. And, having him as your 7th best guy, forget it.
Yeah, and now here's why this actually makes a lot of sense. They desperately need some consistency in left field. Conforto, he gave them 132 games of, with all due respect, mediocrity. Yeah. The worst year in his career. Now he's a free agent. If the Dodgers want an upgrade who can play both defense and lengthen the lineup, Bellinger fits that description as a glove. The front office knows him. The clubhouse loves him. And Dodger Stadium, it fits him like a glove with his swing. And then the fans, every time he comes back, the fans are absolutely loving him left and right. The big catch, though, like you said, Travis, money and philosophy. Bellinger isn't going to sign another deal like he did with the Yankees, where he's going to have an opt-out after 1 year to then go get another big deal. With the potential lockout looming, players are going to try to get as much money locked in and be able to guarantee those deals. And LA, I don't feel that they're going to give him that contract. So is it realistic? Maybe not, but it's intriguing, especially if he's willing to get a creative with this deal.
I'd bet against it if it just will it or won't it happen. I don't think that it will for the reasons that you mentioned. This is his chance to get paid, right? This is his chance to go out there and cash in on the good year he had, excuse me, as a New York Yankee. And I don't think the Dodgers basically fired him a few years ago. The Dodgers basically said, you know what? We're just out of the Cody Bellinger business. You can go wherever you want. We're not even going to offer you a contract. They literally just cut him. It was one of those, he's arbitration eligible. They said, we're not going to make an offer. You can just go wherever you want, which is really rare, much less really rare for a player that had won an MVP early in his career. So I don't know if there are feelings involved there. I don't know if the Dodgers know something that they just don't want to be partnered up with. But I think the biggest problem is going to be somebody's going to offer him real money, and the Dodgers they're not interested in that. They had a chance to do that a while ago and they ran for the hills. So I don't think that's changed a ton.
I feel the only possibility is when he signed that deal with the Cubs. He didn't do it until the last day of February in 2024. He was waiting for a good deal. And then same thing. He ended up getting sent to New York, and he had that option year, and he got out of it. And he's just 30 years old. I feel if he still believes that he can have another monster year, a prove-it year, remember Teoscar Hernandez when he arrived to the Dodgers? He was like, okay, I'm not going to get paid big bucks, but I'm going to go play for a World Series champion team. I'm going to become a World Series champ, have the best year of my career, and then get banked.
Here's the other thing that we got to put into the calculus of all of these deals. There is very, very likely a labor stoppage coming sooner than later. There may be some sort of salary, restrictions in place at some point. I don't think so, because the players union has been so adamant about that. But these guys get one last chance to try to do a deal without those sort of guardrails in place. And if they can, I think they're going to try to do it. So short-term, 1 year show me deals when there is a big fat nothing waiting for you on the other side, at least potentially, is a little scary. So maybe you could get a little bit of a deal on a longer term situation just to try to lock in some security. But like you mentioned, when Scott Boras is involved, long-term security is usually not the thing. It's big dollar security that they're looking for.
Absolutely. All right. Coming up on Locked On Dodgers, Andy Pages quietly became one of the most important young players on this roster. But is he just another James Outman story or something bigger?
The NBA is back. Yeah, it is. Dodgers off to, or I should say the Lakers off to a great start. And there's no better place to get in on the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA, which means even if you miss the start of the game, maybe you're late or whatever, maybe you just like to let the game kind of unfold. You want to see who's got that hot hand. You want to see who just cannot miss on that night. FanDuel, they've got live bets on everything from who will score the next touchdown to fourth quarter comebacks. Plus, you can even combine your live bets into a same game parlay, which means a shot at even bigger payouts. It keeps every single game more exciting, especially when your team, they're making that late push and getting you paid. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So here's what you do. You head to FanDuel.com, you sign up, and you play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
Don't forget to follow Locked On Dodgers not only on YouTube, but on X, Instagram, and TikTok as well. You can find Travis on social media at Travis Rodgers on X and Instagram. He'll be out there at Legends Attic on Friday, so I'm pretty sure he's going to have some bomb content. Meanwhile, I'm at Harry Ruiz on X, at Harry_Ruiz on Instagram, and at Harry Ruiz_ on TikTok. Is Andy Pages just James Outman 2.0? Remember James Outman's 2023 breakout? Energy, defense, power, poise. What was it? Third place in National League Rookie of the Year. Then came the slump, the demotion, and eventually a trade to Minnesota in 2025. Well, Andy Pages might be living a similar script, but with a different ending. Pages didn't start 2025 hot. A rough first month where pitchers exposed him up and in, but he adjusted. By midseason, he was barreling balls, flashing his arm in center field, and even making a strong all-star push. But then here comes the postseason, Travis. I know you're playing against the best pitchers in baseball left and right, but man, it was an effort which ended up having him benched in the biggest stage of them all in the World Series. So it had me thinking, could this be a situation where in his second year, here comes a slump, and then in the third year, he could be getting shipped?
I want to go back to the comparison to Outman for a second, because I think it's interesting. James Outman showed up and was awesome, like right out of the chute, right? And it's like, holy smoke, the Dodgers might have found another guy, right? This guy could be holding down center field for years. He's hitting homers and everybody's really excited. And then he cooled off, which is normal, right? Like usually when a rookie kind of explodes onto the scene, there's that cool off period where the rest of the league kind of says, oh, he struggles with X, Y, fastballs up, breaking balls in, whatever the soft spot may be. Major league pitchers are really good and they start giving you nothing but that. James Outman was never able to make that adjustment back away from the soft spot that he just continues to struggle with, the same things that he struggled with once the league adjusted to him. I think what makes Andy Pages different than James Outman is that he showed up, he was pretty good, he struggled a little bit, and then he figured it out again, and he had a really good year last year. Like you mentioned, there was a very good case for him to be an all-star. Keep in mind, he hit the second most home runs on a team. Shohei Ohtani obviously led the team. Andy Pages had the second most. He had a horrible postseason. Horrible. I mean, it's about as bad as it could be, right? Like legitimately horrible, minus that catch, which let's always make sure we mention that. But in the grand scheme of things, that's a month, right? Guys have bad months all the time. Now, I understand this was a particularly bad month at the worst possible time, but I'm bullish on Andy Pages. I think he will figure it out. I think he's really good. I think he's shown the ability to, be high, go low, and come back up again. I think the next evolution of his game is to sit somewhere in that middle. That's what makes you a really good major league player. I'm optimistic that he can do it because he's shown that he's done it before. I think, I know he's on the team a year ago when they were going through it, but there weren't expectations on him. I think there were a little bit this year. I think his struggles were notable because they were so bad. The rest of the team wasn't hitting either. He wasn't the only one that was struggling. His was the worst struggle of the bunch, but I like Pages. I think Pages has a future here. I think he's going to get a nice long runway to try to fix what was wrong with him at the end. And I think he can do it because I've seen him done it before.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Dodgers are going to be betting that his postseason struggles were just growing pains, not a warning sign. And if he bounces back the way coaches expect him to, he could lock down one of those outfield spots for years to come. But that's the thing. They need him to be able to bounce back with stability, which might be exactly what this lineup needs with all the big names around it. Just one guy or two guys that are coming up from the system where it's like, there you go. We can develop players like we know we can, and it's just a bad spot right here for them.
Here's what you know about the Dodgers, and this is one of the things that I love about being a fan of this team, is they're going to give you a bunch of time to figure it out, but if you don't, they're going to move on. Right. This is not a developmental program at the big league level, or if you are, you're expected to perform while you're developing. This is the best organization in baseball. The threshold is, can you help us win the World Series? Can you perform at a World Series level? And we're going to try to get you there. But if you don't, we're going to move on. We're going to go to the next guy. We're going to continue to try to find a championship level. Pages has proven that he can get there. He's been there before, but I think they will give him a ton of time at the beginning of next year for him to kind of become the player that we know he is. And if he isn't, they'll fix it because that's what they do.
Absolutely. And look, maybe the comparison with James Outman isn't fair. No disrespect to Outman, who's a guy who I'm rooting for big time, because Pages could end up being something that the Dodgers haven't developed in a while. A homegrown power bat who sticks for the long run with the boys in blue. All right, that'll do it for today's episode. Thank you for making Locked On Dodgers your first listen. If you're still craving more baseball talk, have the all-new Locked On MLB Game Night be your second listen. Get local analysis on a national scale. Find MLB Game Night on Locked On MLB on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. Don't miss our show tomorrow, Wednesday, as we're asking the question that should have the rest of baseball nervous. How worried should Major League Baseball be that the Dodgers won the 2025 World Series without even being at their best, Travis?
A little worried. A little worried that I think that the Blue Jays threw their best punch at the Dodgers, and the Dodgers were firing at about a 65% capacity, and the Dodgers still won the World Series. So, yeah, there should be a little worry for the 29 other teams.
We're diving deep into it on Wednesday, so don't miss our show. On behalf of Travis and myself, we appreciate you riding with us. Until next time, keep it real, keep it Dodger Blue.